Hi, this is Dylan Code with the California Superbike School. We are doing a track tour of COTA in Texas. Let's do it. Okay, front straightaway. You can get going on a 1000 fifth gear. You can get going mighty fast. And because this braking area is pretty steeply uphill, you can leave the braking till quite late. And of course, that's going to depend on the bike you're on. But as you come uphill towards turn one, you can see where it gets dark. And obviously, that's the typical braking zone. Now, it does have these waves in it, these rollers, and that adds a dimension of difficulty. But you can really brake hard because you get that sort of artificial gravity. Coming up here, it's blind, and this corner is super sharp. It is like a hairpin of all hairpins. You really want to try and make it down to this apex because there's a nice acceleration run coming out of here. Go ahead and let it run nice and wide. No big deal. Let it run wide. Arc across the track, and now we're entering the S's section. Now this turn two right here, you're going to want to actually get down and ride this rail. Hug this apex for a while. It's not a touch and go. Probably releasing right about here, and you can get a nice drive. This is a good acceleration zone. And the S's, if we look right here, like what's coming? You don't know. It's fairly flat. And it's a bit busy, so it does take a little while to learn. The next three corners, we want to kiss the apex, just slightly late apex. Slightly late apex, not super late. Again, right here, just slightly late on the apex. And then a little bit later on this one. Now, from here, someone would be pretty tempted to sweep out to the left to open things up, but actually you don't have to do that. You can just fire it straight to this first of a double apex. Fire it in here, hit this one, let it run out. And then the trick is figuring out when to start drawing the bike back in for another late apex exit. This is a brief acceleration zone. This corner you don't really want a low line. You want to square it off a fair amount. Same thing here. You don't want to run out real wide. Maybe half track at the most. And this is a very late apex corner. And also you're going to be hugging the apex for a moment. It's not really a touch and go like a brief kiss. You're going to hug it for just a moment. And this is really the critical point. Can you get the bike flopped over to the left and aimed right? If you run wide, you're going to have to stall on the throttle. So you really want to be able to get the bike pointed up the track for a nice drive. And not unlike the S's, we don't have a whole lot of visual information as we're coming up to this footbridge. It's a blind rise. It's really exhilarating, but your main challenge is to figure out where to commit. So perhaps right about here, it goes downhill, kiss this apex, and if you kiss this apex just right, you can hammer the throttle. On 1000, you can get it up into fourth gear, so we're talking pretty darn fast. And then your braking zone, depending on the bike you're on, etc., it might be where the pavement changes colors. Certainly on a smaller bike where it gets super dark. That's probably more for cars, which typically brake later than motorcycles. Okay, another really pointy turn, very slow, first gear. And this is where you need a little bit of patience to make sure that you get the thing pointed. If you have to sacrifice a tiny bit of speed here, then do so, because we have a gigantic back straightaway. So this is where you're just running it up the gears, wide open. Generally speaking, you're going to sweep gently over to the left. You can stay on the right if you want. It just makes this hard acceleration zone more of a turn. So From here, we can slowly drift over to the right. And the big question is, where do I start braking? And of course, being bike dependent and how savage you are, but your braking zone, if you're going really good, we can see that the beginning of this curbing, so really savage riders are going to be braking pretty deep into this. The beginning of the curbing is a good point of reference, but depending on the bike that you're on and what your tolerance for speed is will really dictate that more than anything. Another hairpin, really pointy hairpin, very sharp, very acute angle. And this is where, since you're coming down from 6th gear all the way down to 1st on most bikes, it's really easy to overshoot this. Just all it takes is about 3 mile an hour too fast and you're way off the apex, and now you're running out towards that curb. We want to get the thing pointed back up. So it does require some patience to really make sure that you hit that apex nicely. Short acceleration zone. This corner, what's its radius? It's pretty tight. So this is another hairpin. You want to come around for a late apex. Again, patience, maybe sacrifice a little to make sure you hit this apex, but then we can run it out. Use this track at the exit, kind of ricochet off the outside, come back in. And the goal is to try and straighten this whole section out as much as possible. And we're not going to hit that first apex we're just passing now. And not necessarily right up against this apex, close-ish. But at this stage of the game, you're kind of aiming for the grandstands and then making a big sacrifice in speed in this neighborhood for yet another super sharp, acute turn. And again, it's critical you get the bike pointed because there's a nice acceleration zone here. Typically it's a first gear turn, so you're gonna get up, you wanna bang 2 upshifts, get it into 3rd. Again, that's bike dependent. And this is where a lot of people will wanna enter in super wide and then open up the corner, but you actually don't have to do that. This is where you're starting to commit. And this is effectively a triple apex corner, and there's certainly a number of ways to approach this, but here's one possibility. We have this first apex, and we're keeping it fairly tight. We have the second apex, and from here we can sweep out all the way to the edge of the track. No, not necessary, but we're gonna sweep out a ways. And from here, it's just a beautiful roll on, and your line is really gonna be guided by the throttle, not from changing lean angle so much as just throttle. And you can just progressively feed the throttle in, not suddenly, just a nice linear progressive roll on for a super late apex. Then we've got a short acceleration zone. You can let it sweep out a bit. You've got enough time to bring it back. Now, if you can see where it gets light and dark, well, you guess what happens to the road here. It's got these waves to it, and that can upset the bike, so you have to factor that in on when you're braking. This corner might look like a 90-degree corner, but it isn't. It's actually wider than 90, so it's easy to overslow because of that. So this is more of, you want to carry momentum in this corner versus like a stop and go. And contrasting that, this final corner is acute. It's sharper than 90. So this is yet another really tight hairpin that you're going to have to be quite patient on making it down to this apex so that you can get the bike pointed up the front straightaway for your drive. And that's going to be 1 lap at the world famous COTA Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas.